YouTuber beauty launches are becoming a dime a dozen, with beauty gurus doing what they can to make a quick buck. That's why the quality of these launches varies so much between influencers, because it's clear that some took their time to make sure it was right, while others just basically slapped their name on it and dipped. And today I'm going to be breaking down the biggest disasters and talking about the top 10 beauty YouTuber launches that went horribly wrong, part 2. I'm Mackenzie, you're watching InformOverload, and let's just get right into the shade. Starting off at number 10, we have Nikki Tutorials' Too Faced Palette. Nikki Tutorials was one of the first beauty gurus to do a mainstream collab. That's why it was so much worse when it was a total flop. And she knows it. That's why in her last palette launch video, she said, quote, "After quite some years, I have found trust in a brand again to create an eyeshadow palette. I haven't collaborated with the brand in years. We all know my first one." The collab happened back in 2016 and it was with Too Faced. The product was a palette along with a bundle of other stuff. Drama first started when fans who purchased the palette claimed it was poorer quality than what Nikki's own swatches and reveals suggested in her launch video. And tons of Nikki's fans have all agreed that it was just terrible quality. But more shadiness was brought up when Jeffree and Shane did their huge docuseries on makeup, with Jeffree saying that Nikki made Too Faced millions, while she was only paid a measly $50,000 flat fee. Nikki confirmed those rumors from Jeffree when she tweeted out, "I signed my contract with Too Faced back then because I was naive and didn't know better. At the end of the day, I signed it, it's my own fault. But what I'll never forgive is that allegedly they changed the palette's quality behind my back. Thousands of negative reviews and I was clueless." Yikes, Too Faced is just so shady. And at number 9, we have Kylie Cosmetics brushes. Back in 2017, Kylie launched a set of brushes. But these weren't just any brushes. They were a $360 brush set made from natural hairs. And naturally, everyone was wondering if they were worth it. The overwhelming consensus was no. The packaging was cheap and the brushes were subpar. Tons of YouTubers made scathing reviews on the set, absolutely trashing it. The worst was Jeffree Star, who straight up called them Dollar Tree brushes. And in his video reviewing them, he took no prisoners, saying that they were absolutely not Jeffree Star approved. He told his viewers he could not recommend buying the product and brought up issues with the quality of a ton of the brushes. And he milked it so much in a now deleted tweet, Jeffree asked Kylie for a refund. And it seems that Kylie couldn't handle the criticism because shortly after that, she kicked Jeffree off her PR list. And at number 8, James Charles merch. So even though this wasn't a beauty item that was launched, James faced tons of backlash when he launched a color block merch set. This was because YouTubers H3 Productions felt that James had blatantly copied their designs because, well, he totally did. Ethan Klein ignited the backlash when he tweeted how James and his merch looked very similar, and some of them were straight up copies. And when there was back and forth with James not admitting that he was at the very least inspired by their brand, Ethan included the reaction James had when Wet n Wild copied his palette, which was way worse and way shadier. And the whole thing just ended up making James look, pretty bad. And at number 7, Jeffree Star's Blood Money collection. So I got some recent tea for you guys. So Jeffree Star faced some issues when he launched his Blood Money collection, but not for the typical reasons you might think. He first got in a fight with YouTube because they ended up demonetizing and suppressing his launch video because they felt that it had nudity in the video. Because honestly, it kinda did. And even though there was no straight up nudity in the video, there were some models who were entirely naked other than their genitals. So I can definitely see why YouTube did what they did. But then people had issues with the format of the launch video because it was a lot more produced than Jeffree's typical launch videos, and people felt that they couldn't see the product up close, as well they thought it felt too much like an infomercial. So Jeffree ended up making a second launch video, where he admitted that there was a new person that edited that video and that's why the feel was so different. And he owned up to his mistake and took the constructive feedback. And at number 6, Susan Yara's Naturium. Susan Yara is an incredibly well-respected YouTuber in the skincare community, or at least she was until she was very shady about her skincare launch. Basically, she started promoting this brand called Naturium on her channel as well as her other social medias, giving the products rave reviews and encouraging her followers to buy it with her discount code. But then a few weeks later, she announced that she was launching a skincare line called Naturium, aka the exact same brand that she was promoting weeks before. And promoting products without telling people that you financially benefit is a huge FTC violation. It's also just very shady. After intense backlash, Susan apologized, explaining that she did so to earn unbiased feedback from friends and customers, but people didn't like that excuse and felt the whole thing was just very unprofessional and sketchy. Halfway at number 5, Liza Koshy's One of One launch. Liza Koshy was a massive hit on Vine that managed to move her fame over to YouTube and then into traditional media. And she has made the most successful move from internet to industry maybe ever. And that's why she doesn't post much on her YouTube channel anymore. So people were not happy to see that she came back to YouTube after not really being consistent on the platform in the slightest to announce that she was launching a beauty and skincare line. And seriously, like another one of these? Like, I'm sorry, like who asked for this? The answer is nobody. So of course, the reaction was that Liza needed to stay in her own lane and that someone who is literally known for always wearing incredibly minimal makeup has no business launching a beauty line. Now I personally don't know why she didn't just launch something more true to her brand as a comedian. I'm personally just not loving this at all. If James Charles wants to gatekeep this one, I'll let him. And at number 4, Jeffree Star's cremated collection. Jeffree Star made waves when he decided to launch a palette called Cremated in the midst of a global pandemic, when millions of people were dying. After tons of backlash about the name, Jeffree addressed it in a video called Responding to the Backlash Over My Cremated Palette. He started off the video by letting people know that palettes take months and sometimes even years to develop, so this idea had nothing to do with the pandemic. He also said that his father and 2 dogs were all cremated, so he never intended to come from a disrespectful place. And at number 3, Jaclyn Hill's highlighter collection. After Jaclyn's disastrous lipstick launch, she took some time away from the beauty world, but she then decided to make a return with a highlighter launch that literally nobody asked for. And there were many complaints about this launch too. Firstly, people called out the PR packaging for being insanely wasteful, like there was no reason for it to be so big for just some highlighters. People also hated that after not posting for months in light of Lipstick Gate, she came back on just to promote another product, not actually trying to win back any of the trust of her audience. Also, this one had disastrous logistics issues, with people getting sent incomplete orders and then no acknowledgement that they were missing some of the products. Then one person posted that they only ordered 1 highlighter, but they actually received like 15 of them for some reason. There was also an issue with Jaclyn sending PR to some micro-influencers, but only sending a fraction of the products to those with a smaller following. So just really not a good look overall for Jaclyn. And at number 2, James Charles Instant Influencer. This next James Charles one wasn't a product, but it was the launch of his beauty competition show, Instant Influencer. When the lineup was announced, there were issues about diversity in the show. And along with that, another beauty guru, Thomas Halpert, told his fans that he was picked to be on the show, but didn't go through with it because the contract was so intense. Then James responded to that tweet saying that Thomas was not actually picked, but Thomas came through with the receipts proving that he was sent an email from production saying that he was a finalist. So then James walked it back and apologized for not knowing Thomas was picked as a finalist, but said that there were many rounds to get to the final picks, and Thomas did not get through to the final round. And even though the show was still a huge success, it started off with some tea. And finally, number 1, Zoe Sugg's 50-pound holiday advent calendar. This is one that is always talked about in these kinds of videos, because Zoe Sugg thought she could get away with charging 50 pounds for an advent calendar that should have been sold at the dollar store. And almost as soon as the advent calendar hit the shelves, fans and followers of the YouTube star felt outraged, with people thinking the products were extremely subpar for the price. With the 12-door calendar containing prizes like a pen, a room spray, a cookie cutter, and a notebook. Then to make things worse, she didn't even address it in a proper apology, but instead she just made a few comments about it at the end of a regularly scheduled vlog. And the explanation, she said that she does make the products, but she doesn't decide the price of them. After all the backlash though, Boots dropped the price of the calendar to 25 pounds. Still a little expensive. Alright everyone, that's all for the shade today. Let me know what you're thinking down below. Whose launch was the biggest disaster? Or were there any that I missed that could be in a part 3? But before I dip out of here, I'm going to shout out some of the comments from me and Charlotte's part 1 of this series. So Bird said the bottle Tana used for her perfume looked exactly like a nail polish bottle I saw at Hot Topic. No, literally exactly. Like there's no originality in that whatsoever. And it's not even on brand either. Then Yasha said number 10 wasn't fair. It wasn't Jeffree's fault that people flooded his site. I agree with you there. I'm not saying it was his fault, but it was a bad launch. It was a really infuriating launch. I was trying to buy the palette and I couldn't even, and I was very peeved. But it wasn't his fault. I agree with that. Then Adrian said if it weren't for their drama, some of these brands would have no publicity at all. That's just straight facts. Then Lynn Thomas said Sophia Nygaard melted down lipsticks from other companies, mixed them together, and retubed them all in her kitchen, and they didn't have the problems that Jaclyn's did. Yeah, I don't understand how Jaclyn had like such bad issues. She is just a disaster, I'm sorry. Alright everyone, that's all for the video today. Thanks so much for sticking around. If you made it all the way here, if you liked the video, make sure to like and subscribe below. I've been your host, Mackenzie Smith, and I'll catch you all in the next one.